Good morning and afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Gorell, and thank you for participating in today's 1059th Justice Clearinghouse webinar, Generating Momentum, How to Create Changes in Any Part of Your Life and Protect It at All Costs. When momentum is on our side, things just seem easier, but when we have no momentum, even something small can throw us off track. So during our webinar today, Marc Hildebrand will teach you how to create momentum for yourself and the strategies you need to keep the momentum going. Because once you have it, you'll want to protect it at all costs. Marc Hildebrand is a current law enforcement officer from the Los Angeles Police Department who struggled through a 100-pound weight loss journey and lost touch with his family while working his crazy career. After successfully getting into the best shape of his life at 43 years old, he now shows other law enforcement officers how to generate the time and energy so they can thrive in their career, get into incredible shape, and make a real impact with their family. Now, briefly, before we begin, I'd like to share with you some information about Justice Clearinghouse. The Justice Clearinghouse is the only peer-to-peer multidisciplinary educational program for justice professionals that offers the instruction and skills necessary to achieve both individual and organizational transformation. Through our year-round virtual conference, our audience and members develop those critical skills that are necessary to positively impact themselves and their communities. And while anyone can attend our live events, our paid members are able to access this content on their own schedule with over 1,000 hours of recorded sessions and are also eligible to receive certificates of attendance that may be used when seeking continuing education credits. So if you're not presently a member, I would invite you to join today and support our work. Now, the last couple of things I'd like to address with everyone is some basic housekeeping items. First, this event is being recorded and the formal presentation is scheduled to last about 60 minutes. It will be available to members on the Justice Clearinghouse website. Second, this is a listen-only event, but you can type in any questions you have through the GoToWebinar toolbar, and we will take as many of those questions as possible at the end of the formal presentation. Now, we have incorporated several polling questions into this webinar, and you'll need to have access to your mouse to participate. By way of a trial run, I'd like to ask this first question, which is, given the turbulence of the last year, how are you feeling about your career? Are you intending to stay in your existing role and profession for right now? Are you thinking about shifting roles or your agencies but not leaving your profession? Are you starting to think about a transition but not immediately? Are you seriously thinking about changing careers? And that last option is get me out. We'll give folks about another 10 seconds to go and respond. I think, Marc, this question is right up your alley and right up the alley for this webinar, isn't it?
100%, 100%.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and close down the poll and share the results because I'm sure everyone is as interested as I am in seeing. So 53% of you say that you're planning on staying in your existing role and profession. 24% indicated that you're starting to think about a transition. 14% said you might shift roles or agencies but stay in the profession. 7% said that you're seriously thinking, and 4% said get me out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Now, I did want to point out that we've included a handout on the GoToWebinar toolbar. You'll find that under handouts. The handout is about Marc's Justice Clearinghouse course called Mastering Your Life Through Self-Coaching. So take a look at that brochure. If it's something you're interested in, we encourage you to sign up or reach out to me if you'd like more information. Finally, after today's presentation, there will be a follow-up survey, and we ask that you complete it. Your feedback is shared with our presenters and helps shape everything we do here at Justice Clearinghouse. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn the presentation over to our instructor for today. Marc, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I greatly appreciate that. And by the way, I always like to start here. Aaron and Chris, thank you guys so much for putting the energy and effort into this. I've seen plenty of your webinars, and they are incredible. And I'm going to get this one to rise up to that level too. Okay, that I promise. Guys, I am super pumped up for what we're going to be talking about today when it comes to generating momentum. Now, before we dive in, I just want to say, like, based off of that survey that we just did right there, I feel like everybody's in the place that they are right now for a reason, and there's no right or wrong answer there. But I do want to say that I greatly appreciate you guys for being here, not just on the webinar, but for what you do out there every single day. I mean, let's really face it, like we need leaders right now more than anything, and that's what you guys are doing. I've seen it time and time again, and if nobody has told you yet today, I greatly appreciate for what you do, no matter what specific field you're in, okay? So I just wanted to say thank you guys. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to be talking about this idea of generating momentum. And when I say generating momentum, what a lot of people think about is they think about like a transformation, they think about maybe their health or their fitness, but I want to let you know that momentum is something that you have had before. And it might just be that you have to identify what it is that helped you to create that momentum in one area, and you can shift that over to the next. Now I'm going to talk to you guys a lot about some of the universal principles that I found when it comes to creating momentum, because I had to create momentum not only with my health, not only with my family, but also starting an online business. There were so many different ways that I've been able to help identify what the actual universal principles were. And I'm here to tell you that those universal principles are the same in multiple different areas. And sometimes there might be an area that is like that one that you're going to be thinking about during today's presentation. But I want to let you know, a lot of times when we start to climb a mountain, it's not the fact that this is the first mountain we've ever climbed. It just seems so big because it's the current mountain that we're on. But we've all climbed mountains before. We all know what kind of shoes to wear. We all know the path to take. We all know that sometimes when you make it up halfway to the summit, you have to tent for the night, right? You have to recover, be able to fuel yourself. And that's the same thing here. So no matter what it is you're dealing with right now, I want to let you know that it is 100% possible for you, and you're living proof because you've done it before, okay? All right, now that being said, let's jump into the presentation. So let's start off with this question. Aaron, do you want to pop in and poll this question for everybody?
Absolutely, Mark. That question is up, and the question is what area of your life are you looking to generate momentum in? And please select one of the options: your health, your career, your business, or your relationships. And I know most of us would probably want to check multiple options or maybe even all of them. But at the end of the day, if you could indicate the one that you most want to generate momentum in. We'll give this about another 5 seconds or so. All right, Mark. Well, especially in these days and times, the result is probably not going to be too much of a surprise. 55% of the audience indicated my health, 22% said my career, 19% indicated my relationships, and 5% my business. Is this about what you've seen when you've asked this question in other audiences?
100%, 100%. A lot of times the my health portion of that is even higher. And I really feel like what we're going to be talking about today when it comes to generating momentum, I'm going to really relate it to your health. And I'm glad that you guys, first off, were open and honest when you were sharing that with me, because it helps me personalize this training for you guys. But health is the thing that originally started the ball for me. And I know Aaron said this. He said, how about if we just pick all four? Where's option number 5 where we pick all of these? But here's the thing, guys. When you're generating momentum takes a lot of energy, and you're going to find that out right now. And it's best for you to focus on one area that will make all of the other areas easier to generate more momentum in. And that always starts with health. So I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page here before we actually jumped into the presentation here, right? It's so much better to take on one area and then you can expand to the other, instead of feeling the thoughts of just being overwhelmed because you have to do them all at once, because you absolutely do not. All right, so let's go. Here's what I have to say. I am a very fast talker. I have my own podcast. I do a lot of public speaking, and I try to get as much information as I possibly can into a short period of time. So if you could do me a huge favor, and that is silence emails, phones, anything that could beep or bing, and have something to write on, I want to offer that there's going to be 1, maybe 2 pieces of information that I'm going to share with you guys today, that if you pick it, it's going to really exponentially help you create this momentum in your life. And the thing is it's going to be different for everybody. That's why I need to make sure that as we're going, that you find the pieces that speak loudest to you. You might even think that you have to implement every single thing that I'm going to share about here today, but that is not how I started. I picked one piece of information. I started to take action on that. And once I started to see the results, then I could go back and create and find other different avenues for me to really jump into. So I don't want you to think you have to consume everything, but I want you to be ready and open to what you need to hear. All right. So I want to start off with, does this sound like you? Maybe you've started and stopped so many times you can't seem to generate the momentum that you know you need to create the results that you want in your life. Maybe you've had momentum, but you gave it up. And now you want to know, like, how do I get this back? Like maybe you were working out before. Maybe you did have momentum in your life and then you gave it up. But you're like, how can I get back there quickly? Or maybe you're looking at everyone else and it seems like creating momentum is so much easier for them and you'd like to know their secret. Well, today I'm going to share that with you and you're going to find the answer. So what we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to give you a 3-point breakdown, all right? The first point, we're going to talk about how to create momentum, all right? Because we have to initially figure out how to create it. Then we're going to talk about how to protect it. Because here's the thing, when you have amazing momentum, it's very easy to keep it going. It's the beginning process that takes a lot, right? And then once you have it, you have to protect it at all costs. And I'll share with you how to do that. And then I'm going to talk to you about this science experiment called life, all right? The science experiment called life. And you'll understand what I mean when I get there, all right? Now, how our story started, because a lot of people see me where I'm at right now, and they tend to think that like maybe I had it all figured out. And that is absolutely false news. Here's me and my wife. We were both unhealthy. I had no energy. I was very negative. I was giving it all to my career. And really, this wasn't enough. Like, you know, that idea of hitting rock bottom, I've talked about this before. The idea of hitting rock bottom is actually a thought. It's a decision that you can make at any moment. You could say, hey, this is my rock bottom. You could say 6 months ago was my rock bottom. You could say, you know what? I haven't hit that yet. I didn't realize that I could actually make that decision, but for me at this moment, this wasn't actually what I determined to be rock bottom. It wasn't until my son was born. My son, he was born 1 pound, 9 ounces. He had to spend 73 days in the NICU. And it was at the time when I was physically, mentally, and emotionally like spent. I wasn't getting sleep. I wasn't taking care of my health. I wasn't doing any of the things that I was talking about right now. As a matter of fact, I could literally talk myself out of doing anything because I said I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the resources. This is just the life that I have to live, especially being a police officer with everything kind of going on. And it was in that moment where I was sitting in the hospital. My wife had just given birth, and we were told, hey, you know what? We'll keep him here in the NICU. You guys go home and get some rest. That it really hit me. Like I hadn't really taken care of myself to be able to take care of my son, to be able to show up and be the father that he needed to be, that I needed to be. And I felt like I had let him down. And it was at that moment that I decided, okay, this is my rock bottom. And guys, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anybody that I connected to who was going to teach me about momentum or teach me about any of the other things that I created inside of the Justice Clearinghouse course. Like I didn't have any of that, but I had made a decision. And my decision was, this is never going to happen again. He doesn't get to choose who his father is, but so basically I felt like I had let him down and he had no choice in the matter. And it had all been because of me and my decisions that I had made. Now I want to say this, shame and guilt is never a way for you to create an amazing life. And I wasn't shaming or guilting myself. Maybe I was at first actually, but after I really understood that there's no positive that comes from that, my mind went to, what am I going to do about this? And that's really what we're going to be talking about here today. Because when I did this, I lost 100 pounds. Teresa lost 35 pounds. People started reaching out to me, asking me, how can I help them? It actually spurred me into creating my own business, becoming a life coach, and now owning a life coach school where I teach other people how to actually coach other people. And it would have never happened if I had never been put into that situation where I had let myself and my son down. That's really what the focus is going to be here today, is like, how did we create that momentum coming from like literally a dead stop? As a matter of fact, I think I was going in reverse and I was able to turn it around, and I'm going to share with you guys that today. And I want to let you know that it was not an overnight thing. All right. It was not an overnight thing. If anybody tells you that that was the case, it is also false news, but there is a way for you to start that momentum and remain consistent. We're going to talk about it today. All right. Now, here's our second question. Aaron, I'm just going to ask this question, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that if you continue doing what you're currently doing right now, that you're going to generate the kind of momentum you know you need to accomplish what you said in that first poll? Whether it's your health, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your family, whether it's your business, whether it's your career, if you continue with where you're at, what you're doing right now, how confident are you that you're going to generate the kind of momentum that you need in your life? So go for it. Answer that question for me.
Outstanding. And Mark, over half the audience has already responded, so we'll leave this one open for about another 10 seconds or so. And I'm assuming 10 is supremely, absolutely, completely confident. 0 would end up being, or 1 would end up being not confident at all. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. We're going to go ahead and close out that poll. We'll share the results here. Half of the audience indicated from 0 to 3. 37% said confidence level of 4 to 6, and 13% indicated a confidence level of 7 to 10.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Let me speak to the 7 to 10s real quick. 7 to 10s, you guys are the leaders out there. You guys are the ones who you create the momentum for everybody else. So I really want to take this from a point of when I was a 0 to 3, I had to focus on me first. Also, when I was in 4 to 6, I also had to focus on me. But when I hit over 6, my goal is no longer to keep the momentum for me. It's to teach other people how to create momentum in their lives. So if you said you're a 7 and a 10, I want you to look at this presentation entirely different than everybody else. I want you to look at it as like, okay, what Mark's about to teach right now, how can I help teach and inspire other people to do this for themselves? And I can't tell you, like, when you get to that point where you start teaching other people, how much more of an impact it'll make on you. All right. So it is your job. I really feel it's your duty and responsibility if you're a 7 and a 10 to get so many other people on the planet to become 7 and 10s along with you. Okay. Now we're going to first start talking about, there we go. Just defining this word momentum. I'm like this nerd where I literally like to really break it down. I want to hear what the actual word means so that I understand and I start to comprehend what it means. So momentum is strength or force gained by motion or by a series of events. So it's strength or force gained by motion or a series of events, meaning not one singular event, but a series of events. Now, I want to talk a little bit about momentum just in and of itself, all right? I want you to picture this. There is a freight train, like this train that's here. Actually, that's probably a passenger train, right? And when it's going at, let's say, 60 or 65 miles per hour, you can put a block wall in front of it and it's not going to matter. It's going to shatter through the block wall. What's crazy though, is if the train is stopped, you can put one cinder block in front of the train and it'll prevent it from starting. It's crazy what momentum can do for us, guys. Momentum can make everything else easier. I don't like to say the word easy because I don't want people to think that like life is easy and creating momentum is easy and results is easy, because it's not. That's why not everybody in the world has created it, right? As a matter of fact, I kind of like that. I like the fact that it's not so easy because it makes me have to prove that that's what I really truly want, right? But momentum does make everything easier. Like Aaron was saying in the beginning, if you have an issue that comes up, it could be a very small, difficult, or very small situation. Like if you have no momentum, it's like monumental. Like I know I have a retired mom, and like she just watches TV, and the smallest thing could come up and she's like, oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end, right? But for people who are moving, that's not a big deal. You probably have that situation where, like, for me, it's like my kids will say something or they'll spill something or something will go wrong. And I'm like, it's not a big deal when you have that momentum. But if you don't have that momentum, it makes everything else harder. Now, here's what I was kind of talking about a minute ago, and that's leaders. I really feel their job is to create momentum and pave the way for others. Meaning, there's a difference between producers and consumers. Now, we are all both. Sometimes we're producers, sometimes we're consumers. But I want to ask you, if you're a leader, if you're the one who's creating the momentum for other people, are you producing? Meaning, are you putting stuff out in the world, or are you consuming? Are you waiting to scroll through social media to find something that's going to give you, excitement or motivation or momentum? Are you waiting on somebody else on the outside to get you to take those actions? Or are you finding out ways that you can create that for yourself? And leaders really, truly, I really believe that it is their job to create that momentum and pave the way for others. And the momentum requires personal energy. So if you heard what we were talking about when it comes to like the amount of energy that it requires to create momentum, that's why your health is so important, because having that personal energy is critical to being able to create momentum. You don't create momentum just on its own. It doesn't happen automatically. It requires energy. But you might be asking me like, well, how? Like, how in the world do I create that kind of energy? And I'm going to talk to you about that today. We're going to talk about the invisible elements, all right? Here's my wife and I doing a really crazy jump. But really, I want to go a little bit off course here, all right? Because I want to explain to you the difference between visible and invisible elements. A lot of times we want to hear about the visible elements, the things on the outside, but it's truly the invisible elements that really matter the most. So I want you to do this for me, all right? I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think of like the most amazing and incredible tree that you've ever seen, like the most beautiful, powerful tree that you've ever seen. Now, do you have it in your mind? Do you have a picture of it? Now I want you to open your eyes and I want you to tell me, was it the roots? Did you see the roots in your tree? Or did you see the stuff above ground? Did you see the leaves and the flowers? You see, what's crazy is like we tend to see the things above, and that's really what we go for. So we see people on social media, we see all these visible things on the outside, we see people's behaviors, but we don't realize is that without the roots, not only do they not have any form, they can't even really use the energy that they don't have any structure, that it wouldn't even be possible to have those amazing, beautiful, visible elements without the invisible things. So the reason why I wanted to say that is because there's so many different aspects of your life that we're constantly focusing on the visible things, the results, the transformation that people are having, but we forget the invisible. Well, today I'm going to really like dive into the invisible elements, but I also want you to think and realize that these invisible elements are happening in multiple other areas of your life, okay? One of these invisible elements is really your internal energy, all right? Now we can see these as being visible, right? We can see sometimes like people getting really excited. Maybe you're on this I almost said podcast because I have my own podcast, but maybe you're on this presentation, you're like, man, Mark has a lot of energy. Like it's just crazy, right? That's just the results of my internal invisible energy that just gets generated from me, all right? And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So number one is your health journey. When you think about energy, of course, it all comes down to your health journey. But when I talk about health journey, I'm not just talking about exercise and movement and eating healthy. I'm talking about how about like your mental health? How about like actually taking days where you're sleeping more? How about giving yourself a little bit more grace when it comes to things you don't maybe do right the first time? How about the reduction of stress that's actually affecting you in your life? I mean, I know a lot of people who take care of themselves by working out and eating healthy, and they aren't healthy because they're saying yes to everything. They're stressing themselves out. They're taking on more that they need to be taking on, right? And by doing that, they're wondering why they don't have the energy. I remember when I had to work, and this was for so many years, almost 11 or 12 years on LAPD, I had to work what's called Watch 3, which is the nighttime hours. And when you work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then you get off and then you have young kids and then you kind of feel like you're forced to like stay up for multiple hours and then you have to go back into work the next day, like that doesn't do really a solid for your health. And you got to find different ways of making it a priority for you to get that sleep. I understand that if you're early on in your police career or early on in any career, sometimes you have to make some kind of sacrifices, but you've also got to think about like, what can I do to make sure that I do get the sleep during the day? And I didn't do that. I didn't ask myself those questions, all right? So your energy always starts out with your health journey. The next thing that your energy really gets fueled by is your personal growth. Guys, you're here on a webinar, and let me tell you, like, you are my type of people. You're into personal growth. You want to grow. You literally signed up for a training so that you can watch it so you can grow as a person. Anytime that I'm growing, anytime I'm learning something new, anytime I'm like implementing or teaching, like that creates a massive amount of energy because it's not just based off of things that I've always done. It's based off of like, I'm growing, I'm becoming better. I'm becoming the best version of me because there's this great quote is like, why would you settle for the second version of somebody else when the best version of you is always available? And when you're becoming that person, it just gives you so much hope and optimism. So your personal growth, what you're doing when it comes to reading, listening to podcasts or listening to audiobooks or participating in the JCH webinars, that is your personal growth. I want you to check in and really feel, how do you feel right now? After this webinar, what does it do for the whole rest of your day having this kind of energy? And here's the thing, like, this is what I have to say, like, maybe my energy is helpful to you. Maybe you're like, this guy's on fire, like I'm ready to go out. People always tell me this. I don't know what happened, Mark, but when I got off the webinar, I just went out and I ran 5 miles and I haven't ran in like 6 years. And it's kind of funny, but there's the opposite too. Some people don't like that energy. And I want to make sure that you understand that doesn't mean there's something wrong with me, and is there definitely not something wrong with you. You got to find what fuels your energy. I'm just giving you some different ideas here, but if there's things or people or anything that doesn't fuel your energy, you've got to really unplug. You've got to do what's really right and in your best interest, all right? The next one is your environment. people like to say like the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is such an important part of me. It's the reason why I create mastermind teams. It's the reason why I hang out with people like Aaron and Chris, because when you're in that environment, you will naturally take on not only their energy, but their thoughts. You'll be taking on a lot of what it is that they're doing, some of their behaviors, because your environment is contagious, guys. Your environment is contagious. Your environment can even be social media. If you spend too much time on social media, and what you realize is when you get off of Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you feel like your energy has been drained, it's because you haven't protected your environment. Maybe there's some people you need to unfollow. Maybe there's some people you need to like, I don't know, block, whatever that is. Or maybe you just not be on there so much, but that's a big part of your environment too, right? And are you controlling those people, those inputs? Because what gets put in is going to come back out as terms of energy, all right? So your environment is critical. This is another one that I came up with recently because this is something that really fuels me. And Aaron and I were talking about this, and this is really like your adventures. It's like when you do things you've never done before. And sometimes it's even things that I don't even know if it's possible for me. So I have something called Crohn's disease. This is an autoimmune disease. It was developed because of the stress that I put on my body due to my police career. But what I can't believe is like actually doing things like, let's say, a Spartan race, or actually doing things like going out on a camping trip, something I've never done before, or going to the Grand Canyon, or doing things that like are like an adventure for me and for my family, gives me a lot of extra energy because it's not the mundane of doing all the normal stuff that we typically do. I was telling Aaron, like, there's so many amazing things and memories that I create just from not being in my house, right? Just going out and doing something different that my body's not used to. It helps create this incredible energy as well as great memories with my family. And it's this idea of having an adventure, doing something you've never done before so you can create that extra energy. And the last piece is your core values. This is the piece that I really messed up. So your core values are kind of like these innate values that are inside of you. And when you feel like you've really rocked your day, it's because you've been in alignment with your core values. If you don't feel like you rocked your day, you don't feel like you got enough stuff done, you don't feel like you're spending time in the right areas, it's because you have like not really identified your core values, but then living within them. So for me, my core values is impact, and how I do that is multiple different things. It could be my podcast. It could be this, right? I mean, I'm on this call because impact is one of my true core values, but also health, also my family is a core value, and also integrity is a core value. So I don't teach or train or do anything that is not in alignment with what I'm actually doing, because it would be against my core values if I were to do that. So when I think about those 4 core values, I make sure that I live within them. Now, here's the thing. You're going to have some core values, right? Maybe yours is going to be similar to mine, where mine is like health, family, and impact. And there's going to be some clashes in between there. And that's the way that it's supposed to be, right? You want to spend time I want to give my family more time, right? I want to give my health more time. I want to give impact more time. But really the synergy, what I like to think of as like harmony, is really what it's all about. It's like we go through a little bit of different seasons, not at the cost of another area, but that's just the way that it works. But when you're living within your core values, it just gives you an incredible amount of energy where you get to the end of the day and you're like, I did it. I was able to live within my core values. So those are some of the invisible elements that will help you generate your energy. Now, I like to ask a lot of questions. Being a life coach and actually owning a life coach school, I know there's a lot of power in asking yourself great questions, because that's where you can find amazing answers. Some of you guys may have came here today looking for answers from me, and that's not really what is going to empower you. What's going to empower you is if I can ask you a question, and then you can find within your life how this applies to you and make the changes that you need to change, then I've done my job. My job isn't here to like literally tell you there's one right, best, only way, because there's not. But what I can do is I can empower you to find the questions for yourself, all right? So how might you generate more energy today? So thinking about those 5 different ways that I talked about, all right? What were some of the things that kind of like popped into your mind in terms of, you know what, I need to remove this. I need to like literally just eliminate this, because every time I do this, every time I think this, every time I'm in this environment, it actually pulls from me, and it's not going to be able to give me the energy that I need to create the momentum that I want in my life. What are some things that you want to add? Maybe there's like some personal development you want to add. Maybe there's something else. Maybe there's a group of people that you want to spend more time with. What are some things that you can add that you've been able to identify based off of what I just talked about? And then what are some things that you can do more or do less of? Okay. Sometimes we don't have to eliminate. Well, a lot of times we don't have to eliminate everything. I mean, this is the same thing with my diet. Everybody wants to know, like, oh man, how did you lose 100 pounds? What were some of the things that you didn't eat? I'm like, well, there was nothing that was off the menu. I didn't say, you know what, I can't have this. I made a decision to not eat certain things because it didn't make me feel good. But some of those things, a lot of those things like cold brew, things like that, I just consume less of them. And it's not that I have to remove it all, but it was a conscious decision of like, what are some of those things that I can do more of? And what are some of those things that I can do less of? So it didn't feel like I was like actually being forced to do something. I don't want to force you guys to do something, and I don't want you to feel like you're forced. I want you guys to make a conscious decision. This is the decision that I'm going to make. And if it ever feels like you're forced to do something, I know that it's never going to be something you're going to be able to consistently do forever, right? So really ask yourself, like, what are some of those things you can do more of or do less of? Okay, part number 2. So we talked about momentum, all right? The second part of momentum has to do with a commitment, all right? And commitment is defined as willingness to give your time and energy to a job, activity, or something you believe in. So willingness to give your time and energy to a job, activity, or something you believe in. Guys, that last part is probably the most important part of all. Something you believe in. Now, commitment 101. This is Grant Cardone who says it's not the smartest or the brightest or the most prepared. It is those who can commit most passionately to their cause. And it's because they believe in it. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the invisible element of mindset, all right? Now, I know that Aaron was talking a little bit about the course that I have. It's called Mastering Your Life Through Self-Coaching. I ended up writing a book about it, which you can definitely grab on my website. I'll talk about at the end. But there's a lot of invisible elements that come from being able to coach yourself, from being able to really master your mindset, from being able to identify questions that actually fuel you to find amazing answers in your life. So really, when it comes to mindset, it's about reminding yourself of what you're fighting for. It's about reminding yourself of what you're fighting for. It's the difference between just taking an action versus like taking the 30 seconds of going, okay, why am I even doing this? Why is this even important or meaningful to me? What kind of impact is this going to make in my life? But what impact is it going to make in my family's life? Now, if you recapture that in terms of you're going to wake up and exercise, right? Well, it could just be like, like I told myself I'm going to exercise today. How does that feel in your body versus me asking you, why do you even want to wake up and exercise today? What kind of role model are you going to be when you don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway? What is it going to make possible for you that maybe isn't possible right now, but you doing this is actually going to lead the way to make those things possible? Maybe it's like play with your kids more. Maybe it's get down on the floor with them. Maybe it's just like go on more adventures, right? And when you think about that, that's what can fuel you to take those actions rather than beating yourself up going, it's just time to work out. Reminding yourself of actually what you're fighting for, because you're always fighting for something. And then showing up no matter what. Guys, I have this thought, this belief that I want to implant in you today, okay? And that is like, the fact that I don't feel like doing something is actually the greatest opportunity that I have to prove that I really do want it. Let me say that again. The fact that I don't want to do something, the fact that I get uncomfortable, the fact that I have fear about doing a presentation, the fact that that happens is actually proof that I really want it bad enough, and it's a great opportunity because I'm going to do it anyway. Reframing that instead of saying like, you know what, maybe I should take today off. Instead, thinking about it as a great opportunity is a way of reprogramming the fear that's going to happen no matter where you are in life and getting you to show up. And then being unmoved by the opinions of others. Guys, if we think about some of the incredible leaders out there, people like MLK, we think about like people who they've made a decision like this is the path that I'm on. Can you imagine what life would be like if they decided they were going to change what they believed in because of other people's opinions? Like the world we live in would not be the world that we're in right now. So really, when you are a leader, when you are focused on your mindset, when you're focused on creating momentum, you have to be unmoved by the opinions of others. I'm not saying that you should not listen to the opinions of others. I'm just here to say that when you go out and start changing the world, a lot of naysayers are going to go out there who have their own limiting beliefs and their own struggles, and they're going to flow through their brain and they're going to make a post on social media. They're going to say something to you. Sometimes it's even the people who are closest to you, the ones who really love you because they feel like they're protecting you. But I want you to understand that that's the way that it works. That's the way that it is. When you see somebody doing things that maybe you either envy because you want to do them, or you just want to protect that person because you don't know if it's going to succeed or not, it's a natural inclination to want to help them, right? But in reality, if you're unmoved by the opinions of others, that's truly where you can create the momentum that you truly want in your life. And now look, Decades and decades later, we all can get behind people who did things like that, right? But we have to do it right now when it matters the most, when it feels the most difficult, when we have that fear, when we're a little bit nervous about what's going to happen next. That is, like I said, evidence that it's something that you must do because it's time for you to lead from the front. Now, question, how might you tap into your commitment? We're going to have the same questions that we had last time. So thinking about this, we were talking about like your energy, but how can you tap into your commitment? What will you remove? Is there some things you do? Is there some programs that you watch on TV? Is there some things that you are going to stop doing because you realize that it reduces your commitment level? Is there some specific people that you hang out with? This is a hard one for me, that actually reduces your commitment level. I remember back when I was, and I said I didn't have any time and money, but I always found time to play softball, to do fantasy football, to go out and play poker, to do all of these extra things. And I had to remove that. Actually, I didn't have to remove that. I chose to remove that. And as a result of me choosing to move that, I was able to actually create where I'm at right now in my life. So what kind of things do you need to remove? What will you add? What are some things that you would add? Now, one of the things that I do inside of my life coach school is I teach people how to create affirmations. And what affirmations are, they're reminders of what you're fighting for. So if you think about this, if you think about like what is important or meaningful to me when it comes to my health, and what kind of impact will it have on my family, not only if I am able to show up and model this behavior for them, but the results of me showing up time and time again, and what kind of evidence will that prove to them that it's possible for them? Well, the answer to that is what's called an affirmation. You write that sentence, this is what it's going to do for my family. This is why I get up every single day, because I want to be the father, the husband, the mom, the daughter that I need to be, and really show up on my A game. So I get up every single day and I exercise and I do the things that fuel me even when I don't feel like it. Maybe that's an affirmation that you need to read. In the morning time, I read, I don't know, it's maybe like 20 or 21 different affirmations that I've literally personally wrote for myself that fuel me to take the actions that I need to take for the whole rest of the day. And so what are some things that you need to add? Maybe you can really plug into some type of affirmation like that. What will you do more or do less of? What will you do more or do less of? And these three questions, guys, if you haven't like really like been able to identify this, these are questions that I ask about everything. I ask these questions about a lot of different things. What am I going to remove? What am I going to add? What am I going to do more of or less of? Because here's the thing, beating your head against the wall over and over and over and over again, and then just thinking that, hey, I've got to do it the same way because I've always done it that way before, is not only a bad way of getting a headache, but it's actually not going to get you the results you want. You have to make adjustments. You have to make modifications. In order to do that, things have to change, right? And if you really want change, you have to change these first. So what are some of the things you need to remove, add, do more, or do less of? All right. Number 3, it's a science experiment, okay? It's a science experiment. Let me grab a quick sip of water here. Here's what I mean by a science experiment. A lot of times, what people do is they make results, they make the fact they didn't work out or they did work out, the fact that they lost weight or they didn't lose weight, to mean something about them on a human level, like there's something wrong with them. You must separate yourself from the outcome. So when I think about our science experiment, I don't know if any of you guys did this, but like there was, I forget what class it was, but you had like this volcano, right? And you had this volcano and you were supposed to put dry ice and you're supposed to put this and that to get the volcano to overflow, right? So it was a science experiment. So if you put something in there and it didn't overflow, typically we wouldn't say, oh, I'm a bad human, I'm not good enough, like why are people going to want to learn from me? Like there's something fundamentally wrong with me. Like you wouldn't say that. You'd be like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next liquid that I can pour in here until this thing like really takes off, right? Why don't we do that for our life? Why do we make something mean something that it doesn't actually mean? And that's really why it's a science experiment. Because here's the thing. When you're creating momentum, when you're like literally having this commitment, you're taking action, not everything's going to work. It's not supposed to. Can I tell you the things that people pay me the most money for, the people that people reach out to me and ask me to help them with, are the things that I screwed up the most? Guys, you guys are watching this webinar not because I did this right. You're watching this webinar because I did it wrong for a long time. And I found a lot of ways of doing it wrong before I could find the ways to do it right. And if I had made it mean something about me as a human, there's something wrong with me, I would not be where I'm at today. So really separating yourself from the outcome is critical. Now let's talk about some of these visible elements, all right? A lot of people are, they're like, okay, that's great, Mark. I love the invisible elements, but how about the visible elements? We're going to talk a little bit about that because I really want to, I want to give you a little bit of this because people always tend to want all the possible actions that they could take to go out and create this momentum. So I'm going to give you a little piece of it, but I also want to make sure that I'm very, very consistent with telling you the visible things do not matter if the invisible things are not there. The tree cannot produce any kind of apples or whatever if the roots aren't there. So don't put the cart before the horse, all right? Action. First part is working smarter versus working harder. For me, being a type A personality, being a workaholic, what typically would happen to me is I would see some kind of results. I would be producing something and my head would immediately go to, well, I just have to do that thing 100 more times. And what it did is it put more stuff on my plate. I was thinking in terms of I got to work harder instead of where I do it right now, which is working smarter. There's some things that you might be doing that don't necessarily have to be done by you. They could be done by somebody else in your family. You could pay somebody to do it. I know for us, one of the big things was like just getting somebody to come over to the house and to just vacuum and just do the laundry. That's like 2 or 3 hours every single week. And plus, I wanted to really think about this, all of the mental stress that it puts on you, thinking that you have to do those things yourself. So working smarter versus harder. Instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, like this thing worked. How am I going to do this do more of this and work harder and harder, harder? Ask yourself, how might I get these same results, but exponentially without me having to do it? You'd be amazed what happens when you start working smarter versus harder. Then I want to talk to you about the 80-20, all right? The 80-20. I talked about this actually inside of my JCH course, but I really want to dissect this really quickly, give you a brief overview, and then send you guys into the course if that's something that you want to dive deeper into. And that is this idea of the 80-20. What the 80-20 is, which is the Pareto principle, is it basically says that 80% of the results that you're creating in your life come from 20% of the activities that you're doing. 20% of the activities that you're doing are producing the 80% of the results you're getting. So really, the 80% of things that you're doing are only producing a very small amount of things. But there's some things that matter more than others. So if I were to ask you, what are the activities when it comes to your physical health? What are those 20% activities that matter most? I don't know, maybe it's sleeping, maybe it's getting your steps in, maybe it's doing a 30-minute workout, maybe it's eating healthy. When you think about the totality of your day, the whole entire day, 20% of your time is spent on those things. The other 80% is the remainder of your day. But this 80-20 rule works everywhere. So when it comes to, like, let's say family, what are the 20% activities that you do with your family that produces 80% of the connection with them? My guess, it's not when you're just making food, when you're driving them places, when you're watching TV together, those kind of things, right? They're probably activities where everybody's disconnected. You're either at an amazing place, like getting to talk to each other, or you're playing a board game. For me, it's like playing a video game with my son or going on a walk with my daughter or my wife. There's things that matter more than the others. So if you identify what those things are, why wouldn't you do more of those and remove, outsource, or completely eliminate the other 80%? So anytime we're talking about actions, I really want you to identify what is the 80-20 here. What are the most important activities for me to do? And what are the things that produce a little bit, but they don't produce enough to actually put in the time and energy to do all of them? I know some of them have to be done, but really, do they have to be done by you, or can they be outsourced to somebody else? Asking those powerful questions will get you to identify the things that you can take off your plate. I did a post on social media that talked a lot about removing things from your plate. In like this time, for some reason, everybody goes to like, what are the things that I need to do? What are the actions that I need to take? As a life coach, my job is to identify the things for you to stop doing. How great does it feel when I say, you don't have to do that? Like, as a matter of fact, that's actually you're going back in the opposite direction. Instead, I don't want you to remove that and add something in. I want you to just give yourself a little bit of silence. Because how do we create something? We need some silence. We need some like way to download into our brain like something new, right? We can't do that if we're constantly working all the time. So a lot of it is just like identifying the things that stop doing. Because when you can stop doing those, guess what? You open the door for so many other opportunities. And the last thing is, don't make the outcome mean something about you. So if you're taking these actions and it doesn't produce the outcome that you want to take, It's a science experiment, right? It's a science experiment. Oh, okay, that didn't work. What's the next thing? What am I going to try over here? Maybe I didn't give it enough time. Maybe it's just the wrong action. And here's the thing, like I really want you to protect yourself against people who tell you the actions to take, not because it's a bad thing, but because just because one thing worked for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. I mean, it's a great idea to try new things, right? But at the same time, if it doesn't work for you because it worked for your friends, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that it didn't work for you. Like we're all different, unique humans for a reason, right? So don't make that outcome mean something about you. Anytime you do, it throws you off course. It steals your commitment, it steals your energy, and it most definitely steals your momentum. And remember, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing everybody else a disservice. Because if you don't have your energy, if you don't have momentum, like other people can't like really be fueled by that either. All right. So there's no positive reason to make something mean something about you. All right. Now, question. How might you make it easier for yourself to take action? All right, I'm going to give you a few different ideas here. These come from an incredible book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about creating a couple different things. Number one, an environment. So make it visible. If there's things you want to do more of, you want to drink more water, you want to eat more fruit, make it visible. Put it in front of the refrigerator. If for me, my water bottle is always in front of me because I always want to be able to drink more water. So it makes it visible so that I remind myself, oh yeah, I've got to do that. All right. Make it easier on yourself. Stop making it so hard. Coming up with a plan. Like if you don't have a plan, then you have no idea what to do, what adjustments to make as you kind of go. So putting together a plan, even if it's super basic, is going to give you an idea of, did this work or not? Okay, I can make an adjustment. If it's just all in your head, it's hard to remember all those things. Having a team. Having a team will make things easier. If I call Bob and I'm like, hey, Bob, I really want to get healthy and I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to go to the gym. Do you want to meet me at the gym? Or do you want to call me every morning to make sure that I get up? Like, how much easier is it to take action? Here's the thing. I'm going to wake up at 5:45 and be like, oh, Jim's going to call me at like 15 minutes, so I better get up, right? But having that team makes it easier for myself to take action. So finding some kind of team that can help you do that. And then tracking. You can't improve what you don't track. So whenever I figure out like what those 20% activities are, what those most important actions are, I find a way of tracking it, whether I do it on a Google sheet, whether I do it like in a journal that I have, whatever, like, hey, these are the activities that I want to do. So I want to track it. What days that I do it, and what days did I not do it? Not because I want to use that and beat myself up about it, but because I want to see it and go, okay, what can I get better with next week, right? And you can't track or you can't improve what you don't track. So make sure tracking is a part of that. But I also want you to make it harder for yourself to not take action, all right? So there's maybe some actions that you're taking right now. You're like, I want to stop doing this, right? So how can you, first part, hide it? There's this great part of the book where he talks about like if you're struggling with like watching TV shows and you just binge Netflix, one of the things that he recommends is that you unplug your TV and you turn it around. Because here's the thing, like we as humans, we want it to be as easy as possible. We want it to be as easy as possible. And so the rule that he had is anytime that he was going to watch TV, he had to know specifically what he was going to watch, how long it was going to be, and then he would turn the TV around, plug it in, and have it go through its startup process. But how many times would it be like, you know what? I don't even just want to turn the TV around. Like that just sounds like too much work. And it's funny, it's really not that much work. But when we do that, we can actually make ourselves take less of those actions we don't want to take. If there's certain things that you drink or certain things that you eat, how about hiding it? How about putting it somewhere else or just not even bringing it into your house, right? I mean, they've done so many studies where if you're in a fast food restaurant and they put out like cartons of water there, you're more likely to take the water. But if they put something else there, it like literally you're more likely to take because it's like, this is the easy thing, right? But what if you use that for you? What if you created an environment where you're actually hiding the things you don't want to do and you're making the things visible that you do want to do? I promise you it's going to make it easier on you. And I always want easier for you guys. Of course, coming up with a plan. What is the plan going to look like? What is not going to be a part of your plan? Team, who is not going to be a part of your team? We all have those people, right? We all have those friends that are like, it's okay, it's all right, right? And we love them for it, but at the same time, they're really not holding us to our full potential. Having a coach is like the greatest thing that I ever did because that person, I literally paid him to make sure that I'm on track. Not only does it like create this level of social cost in me, like I have to show up the next time and tell him what it is that I did, so I better show up. But at the same time, if I don't, he's not going to be like, no worries, it's totally cool, let's do something else. No, he's going to be like, okay, what are we going to do better next time? What is something else that you can implement? What is something else that you can add? What's a different way, somebody else that you can talk to about this? And really, it's not because he's doing it because he's shaming me. He's doing it because he knows my full potential. We can often see the full potential in others so much easier than we can see it in ourselves. That's always the difference between what I term as the head voice and the heart voice in my life coach certification. Is like, it's so easy when your kid comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want to be able to do this when I grow older." And you're like, "Heck yeah, like I cannot wait for you to be able to experience that. I want to be up there on stage right next to you. I'm going to be here cheering you in the background." But whenever, like, if we were to ask that for ourselves, it goes through our head voice, which is like, "Well, I'm too old. I got this, I got that. I'm not good at this." It literally prevents us from actually excelling. And so being very cautious of who it is that you have on your team and also who it is you don't have on your team is critical. And by the way, if you have people that you have to slightly remove from your life, I know sometimes you can't do that for family, but there's other people like friends. You don't have to make a big deal about it. You don't have to come out on social media and go, "Hey guys, I just want to let you know I'm finding a new team." Like, no, like that, just start hanging out with some of those right people that you do want to hang out with, and just make sure that, like, as you go, it's just going to naturally happen. All right. You don't have to make a big deal about it. And the last piece is tracking some of the things you don't want to do, making sure that you don't want that it's something that you even reward yourself for at the end of the week, when you are actually tracking and you're finding you're doing things and not doing things. Not reward yourself with things that go against what your goal is, but rewarding yourself with something because you have worked hard and you have put in the energy that you need to build that momentum. So I want you to take a second here. All right, I'm going to ask you a couple different questions because, like I said in the beginning, there has been times when you've had momentum. You've had momentum. You might have momentum right now in your health, in your business. You might have it in your career. You might have momentum as a leader in your field. You might have momentum as a parent right now. There's a time when you've had momentum, and I want to like pull the gold out of that, all right? Because there's so many times in our past that we use the past against us, but I want to use the past for you right now, okay? So I want you to reflect on a time when you had momentum on your side, whether it was at work, at home, it was with your health. I really want you to think about this. I want you to picture yourself having momentum in that area, and it could be an area that you have momentum in right now. What were you doing that created that momentum? What were some of the things that you were doing that created that momentum? What were you doing to protect it once you had it? So maybe you were like listening to podcasts, maybe you were hanging out with certain people, maybe you were making your health a priority, maybe whatever that stuff, maybe you're doing something new, right? Because when we get into like doing things that we've always done before, it's not as exciting, but maybe you're doing something new. But you also did something to protect it because once you have it, it's so much easier to keep going, but it still requires some energy. So what were you doing to protect that momentum once you had it? How did that momentum impact the other important areas of your life? This is a great life coach question. I always like to share when I put something like this together in terms of like a question like this. This is based off of purpose and potential. Meaning when I help you realize that the impact that you creating this momentum has in the other important areas of your life, you make it much more than just the hard that you have to go through. It's more like, wow, this hard that I'm going through, it's worth it because not only does it help me, but it also helps these other people. So many times we feel like it's selfish to really focus on ourselves, and that's okay because guess what we can do? We can tie whatever goal that we want to achieve to how we're actually creating we're actually fighting for a mission that's out there that's going to help impact other people. And when we can combine those two, your personal vision, like what it's actually going to do for you and for your family, and the mission of what it's going to do to help out other people, everything we do can both connect to both of those pieces. It really brings it through, especially the hard times when it gets difficult to stay on track. And then what key insights can you pull from that experience? So I don't have like 5 or 6 minutes. Normally I'd put on some tunes right now and I would let you guys ask yourselves this question and like really brainstorm it. But I want you to, I don't know if you're on your phone, take a screenshot. I want you to really go through this today. I want you to think about this. Here's the great thing, guys, about life coaching and about asking questions. You don't need to have the answers right now. You don't. Like you don't need to have any answers by the end of this webinar. What you have to do is you have to program your brain to find them. And how do you do that? Is you ask yourself a great question. And you could be like, when was a time that I had momentum on my side? Maybe you can't think of something right now because your head voice is really loud, right? But I want you to program that because as you go throughout your day, your brain will do something incredible. It will look for the answers. That's why powerful questions like literally can change your life because your brain will now be programmed to like find the answers somewhere else, all right? And you don't need to have all the answers. As a matter of fact, if you have all the answers right now, you'd already be there. You'd already have that specific goal, right? So there's something else that's out there. Ask yourself a powerful question to help you find it. Okay, let's go through a recap. Momentum requires energy, commitment, and action. All right, energy, commitment, and action. How do we protect it once we have it? Number one, our environment. Number two, having a plan. Number three, having a team. And number four, tracking it. Now, I told you guys in the beginning, like I'm going to give you a whole bunch of different ideas and suggestions, right? But if you just implement one of these things, I'm telling you, that's what success looks like. Success did not look like me implementing every single one of these things, even though my brain told me that I have to do it all or I'm not going to succeed. That is not what success looks like. After helping thousands of people, tens of thousands of people now, not only in their health, but also in their career, also creating a business, when it comes to relationships, it starts by picking one and just going all in with that. And then as you start to perfect that, it starts to become habit, then moving on to the next one. All right, guys, I greatly appreciate you for your time here. There's a quote that I have here at the top, and I say it during every single one of my podcasts. By the way, my podcast is Master Your Mindset with Coach Marc. It's on any podcast that you can possibly imagine. But I always say you don't get better by consuming, you get better by acting. So we talked a lot about mindset. We talked a lot about like different ideas when it comes to momentum, when it comes to like building up your energy, right? But none of these things get better unless you take action. So I love the fact that you guys are here to consume, but me as a coach, if I'm not getting you to take action on it, I believe that I fail as the leader that you guys need, as the coach that you need to get you to take action. So remember that you don't get better by attending these trainings, you get better by taking the action based off of them. And if you guys have any questions as we go, please don't hesitate. There's my email, my personal email there. And that's how you can connect with me on both Facebook and Instagram. And like I said, I also have my own podcast. If you are somebody who's into personal growth, I talk a lot about mindset on 2 different podcasts that I do every single week on my show. Don't hesitate to reach out and ask me any questions that you have. And like I said, I greatly appreciate you guys for being here, for taking the time out of your day to fully participate in this, to write out a plan, to take action on this. And like I said at the beginning, I appreciate you for the leadership that we need now more than ever. All right, Aaron, I think I finished a little bit early, but I think we are ready for questions.
You definitely did finish a few minutes early, Mark. We certainly don't mind. Fantastic webinar. You know, I've got to tell you, the Nia works for us, and she creates the notes from the webinars. And she was telling me after your last one, you actually motivated her to sit down and do a bunch of push-ups. So you know, you create such inspiration, you create such a desire for action. Thank you so much for your webinar today.
Thank you very much for that, Aaron.
Absolutely. Folks, if you have questions for Mark, now's the time to get them into the GoToWebinar toolbar, and we'll get through as many as we can over the next couple of minutes. And I also wanted to mention this again, Mark. I know you hinted at this earlier, but on January 19th, 2023, yes, 2023, Mark is back with us to talk about mastering self-confidence, lessons for criminal justice professionals. So if that sounds like a webinar you would like to attend, go to the Justice Clearinghouse website. From the menu bar, select webinar schedule, and again, you'll find that one on January 19. All right, Mark, if you're ready, I'd love to start working our way through these questions.
Let's go.
Perfect. Well, we've had a couple of people ask if you could repeat what your podcast is called. I think that's a pretty easy lift.
Yes, Master Your Mindset with Coach Marc.
Perfect. And folks, I know that you can find that on Spotify because that's how I listen to Mark in between the webinars with him. So Spotify, I'm guessing Mark probably dozens of other platforms for podcasts is where you're at.
Absolutely.
Outstanding. Amy wanted to know, do you still serve as a life coach for individuals, and do you still serve as a life coach for individuals?
No, I do not. So I have made a little bit more of a transition to teaching people how to become life coaches, just because after coming out with my book and after coming out with my JCH course about mastering your life through self-coaching, like understanding the philosophies of life coaching, sometimes you can actually coach yourself through those situations. There's going to be times when you do need a coach. But for me personally, because of the amount of stuff that I'm doing, remember that 80-20 that we kind of talked about? I identified the 20% that produces the most is me teaching other people how to not only coach themselves, but coach others. So I've removed or done less of more of that one-on-one. But I greatly appreciate you for asking that.
Absolutely. Next question is, I am a new empty nester and it's weird being alone. What are some things I can do as an empty nester to start feeling better?
Oof, that's a great question. So, I would, when it comes to being an empty nester, when it comes to like having something that has just been so normal for you, right? And there's been a transition. A lot of times, really evaluating like what is actually important or meaningful to you right then, because sometimes we have these moments where we make these transitions in life, and we are feeling like this lack, like there's something that's missing there. And it's actually a great opportunity that we have that presents itself, right? Because I mean, there's going to be a transition. There's going to be things that you can add to what you're doing that you couldn't do before. So I would ask yourself, like, hey, what are some things that I've like really wanted to do for a very long time because I couldn't, because I didn't have this kind of like opportunity? What are some hobbies that I could do? What are some things that I could do outside? What are some relationships that I can further? Like, there's so many different opportunities, and instead of focused on, it's really head voice when you think about like lack, like it's different, like I lost something. There's actually a way of like identifying your heart, and that is like, okay, well, like what are some of the things that I really have been wanting to do? What are some of those things that excite me? What are some of those things that I love doing that I could just do right now that I've never had an opportunity to because of that? And you can actually reframe it in terms of some of those things. Now, I know that it could be maybe she's asking like for health and fitness related stuff, and really when it comes to health and fitness related stuff, when it comes to like going outside or exercising, whatever, I like to find things that I actually enjoy doing. So whenever people like tell me like, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that, I don't like the way that that feels. But there's things that you do. Some people it's gardening. Some people it's just going on a walk. Some people it's like, putting on a 40-pound rucksack and climbing up a mountain. Everybody has their own thing, but finding like your thing that could be your hobby, it could be your time to take care of yourself, and it's something that you actually enjoy, is going to get you to go out there and do it more often. So either of those answers will help, whether it's basically a mindset thing or you're actually talking and thinking about like physically doing something. Those would be my two suggestions.
Fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much. Next question is how would you recommend dovetailing depression into a call to action?
Oof. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about depression, all right? So there's a difference between a coach and a therapist. There's a difference between a coach and a therapist. For me personally, I've seen a therapist 6 times in my life for different situations that I experienced on duty and off duty. What I want to describe the two differences, because when you deal with depression, when you deal with stuff like that, like severe anxiety, there are professionals who are out there who will help you get unstuck. What I like to think of is like what a therapist does is somebody who has come to a screeching halt, who is not taking any actions, who's like literally based off of the past and situations that have happened, have been traumatized. They really need a professional to be able to help walk them through that so that they can eventually come out on the other side. Now, a coach per se, what a coach does is they take people who are taking action and they help them elevate their performance. All right. I've worked with plenty of people who have been going into therapy while working with a coach. But anytime I'm in a session and somebody starts talking about depression, the first thing that I do is say, you need to go seek a professional. You need to find somebody who can really help you break through and get started. And once that's the case, even if you're still going through therapy, you can find a coach and we can help you elevate that to the next level. But I want to make sure that there's a difference between those two, because I know a lot of people come and they think about as a life coach, oh, well, I'm going through this very traumatic, illness or injury or something that's happened in my life. And there's going to be moments when you're going to have to get a professional who's actually like been trained on the process of going back and attacking the past. What a life coach does is he focuses more on the future and what you want to create. And if you're trying to cover up the past trauma, whether it's the situations that have happened, anything towards the future is like, it's sort of like you're trying to plant a seed on top of a tree. It's never going to take root. You have to help uproot that tree first, really what's called process pain. And when you can get through processing pain, that's when you take that next step and you find a coach who can help elevate you to the next level. Does that make sense, Aaron?
Absolutely, really, really great and important distinction. Man, I cannot speak today. Thank you so much, Mark. Okay, next question is how do you remain positive when your body and those around you are just saying no?
Mm. Great question. Okay, so I didn't really share this a lot with you guys, but I have this autoimmune is called Crohn's disease. And what Crohn's disease is it basically takes my energy and it basically attacks my body with my own energy. So basically, my digestive system gets attacked by my own immune system. When I have situations like that and I feel terrible, I give myself the benefit of the doubt. I just say, you know what? The best that I can do today is go on a walk. That's the best that I can do. And I'm not going to beat myself up because this is reality. It's when we start using the outside circumstances to make it mean that like there's something that we, number one, either we can't do anything or there's something wrong with me or oh, woe is me is not going to be something that's going to be possible. Like I can't have success like X, Y, and Z, which is like the comparison game, right? You're looking at somebody else and hoping that or wanting to be like them instead of being the best version of you. So for me, I give myself grace a lot of times where I'm like, hey, this is just the way that it is. Thank God I woke up with energy today, guys, because this energy, if you could figure it, attacking me and attacking my own person, like it does not feel good and I don't feel like getting out of bed, but I give myself grace for those moments. Now, how do I create the energy and the motivation when I am like just not feeling like it? Let me just be the first to tell you that that happens all the time. If you've seen like all the different things that I talked about, all the different like successes that I've been able to have, it doesn't mean that I don't feel like it, that I feel like it all the time when I wake up. No, there's plenty of times. But what I do is I find what fuels me. For me, it's purpose and potential. And so I will say to myself, okay, Mark, you don't feel like doing it, but if you did it anyway, what kind of role model would you make for your kids right now? How would you be able to show up in the world right now when they need you the most? Me being a coach, guys, I can't tell you, being a coach is like the greatest gift that I ever gave to myself. Because if I'm coaching other humans on how to get through it and how to like literally elevate their own lives by taking action, I literally can't be that hypocrite, right? Integrity is an important core value of mine. I can't. I have to do it. It's a matter of this is just the way that it is. I mean, how many people can I inspire if I don't actually take the actions myself? So I find what fuels me. Now, if you're somebody who you don't know what fuels you, find a life coach. Find somebody who can ask you powerful questions and they can get to the root of it. But really, it's just about asking yourself, like, what's important or meaningful to you about that thing that you want to do. So if you want to have a business, if you want to do, you want to be a leader at work, you want to take a specific role, right? You want to be healthy. Like, what is important or meaningful to you? Guys, there's not a right or wrong answer for that. Let me tell you, it's not a right or wrong answer. It's dependent on you, not what other people say, right? It's all dependent on you and really getting to the root of what you want and what impact it's going to make in your life. That's what it's all about. I mean, we were kind of talking earlier about like, hey, I'm an empty nester. And what that tells me is I'm talking a lot about family. And what our brain does is it says, well, this doesn't apply to me because I don't have family. But you've got to find the universal principle there. You got to find what fuels you. For me, it's family. That's why I talk about it a lot. And so maybe that's not what fuels you. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's a matter of what really does fuel me, and finding those answers will get you to take the actions that you want to take.
Fantastic. What fuels you? What a great question, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I do have a question for you actually. So what do you recommend to find a personal life coach? Are there national databases? Because I'm sure some are good, maybe some are not so good. How do you find a really great life coach?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So there's a lot of different people. If you go out on social media, you see a lot of people call themselves life coaches. I would highly suggest if somebody is looking for a life coach that they just reach out to me directly because I can give them some different direction. There are, just like with anything, right? Just like with police work, just like with everything, there are exceptional coaches and there are not so exceptional coaches. And I want to make sure that I would connect them with somebody who's really in alignment with what they want to achieve. But with that being said, there are a lot of different groups or niches when it comes to life coaches. Because when I was coaching specifically law enforcement and people who were in the criminal justice field. I would have a mastermind team for just those people. And so I can really connect with people who like have crazy and unpredictable life, who see things in a day that most humans shouldn't see in a year, right? And when it was like, let's say I transition into business coaching, then I hang out with more people who are related to life coaching in business. And so really being able to find somebody who has that specific expertise is important, but really just like, whether it's reaching out to me or just keeping your ears open for somebody, whether it's on social media, somebody that really you connect with, because that's the most important thing is like you actually connect with them and you feel like they understand you. That's really how you can find a powerful life coach. There's many different organizations that are out there who you can help connect with, but you'll see them pop up in your newsfeed. And of course, reach out to me if you have any questions and I can help connect you with somebody.
Perfect. All right, Mark, our last question is, so when we're working with people, is it better to tell them our assessment of their situation, or should we keep asking questions to help them find the right answer?
You guys are asking the most amazing questions. So the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Okay, so what you're kind of talking about is you're talking about the difference between life coaching and mentoring. Okay, life coaching and mentoring. And we can go into a really deep conversation because this is one of the trainings that we teach inside of our program. But life coaching is the power of asking questions. And when you can ask somebody questions and they can come to their conclusion, they have more of a buy-in and they're more likely to take action on it because it's what they decided. There's a lot of power in that, guys. Plus, there's a lot of power in them knowing that they came up with the answer. There's just so much power in that, okay? Because now they aren't dependent on somebody else to find the answers. They just got to program their brain to find those answers, right? And that's the power of life coaching. But there's going to be situations where you can mentor. Like maybe you've been in that situation before. Maybe you have some teachings or some trainings that you can do. Guys, what you're seeing right here is me mentoring. Literally what I did is I wrote a presentation in which is teaching, which is mentoring, and I sprinkled in life coaching throughout the process. That's why I asked you powerful questions, right? And so it really depends. There's going to be situations where you want a life coach, you want to ask questions, but there's going to be times when the person just spins and spins and spins, and maybe you see something that they don't see, and you offer it up as a piece of information. And here's what I really want to make sure that people do, and I don't see it happen often enough, is when you give somebody advice, and it's mentoring advice, meaning this is what has happened with you, or maybe somebody else that you've helped, they've done this thing. I always like to lead with, hey guys, this may or may not work for you. I just want to share what has worked for me or what has worked for somebody else. But I want to let you know that if this doesn't work, it's okay. There's other solutions that are out there. I just want to give you a head start if I can. Really separating it, because otherwise, if you say, oh, this is what you should do, by the way, that word should, please eliminate that from your vocabulary. If you tell somebody what they should do and then they do it and it doesn't work, do you know how many times those people hold it against themselves? They now think that it's not possible for them. They now think, well, because this didn't work, it's never going to work for me, right? And so if you lead with just that, like, hey, this is one way that I've seen that it worked. There's 10 other ways of doing that, but I want to give you an idea of like where you can best get started. Like that is the great way to mentor. And then of course, if you're asking great questions, and this is really what I'll end with. And that is like people ask me all the time, like, how do you identify what questions to ask? Like, of course, there's life coach schools, there's things like that where you can actually help build that repertoire. But how about just listening to other people? Like listening to some of the questions that they ask, you're naturally going to take people down a certain path based off of the question you ask. In a part of my JCH course, I talked about this idea of coaching. I talked about this idea of asking powerful questions. So if I ask you a question like, hey, what made you smile today? What I'm doing is I'm basically telling you, not directly, but indirectly, that something made you smile. And then I'm telling you, go back into your brain and find what it is that made you smile and then tell me about it. Now, what happens is on a fundamental level, you are like now programming your brain to think about what made you smile. And then when you think about it, guess what it does? It makes you smile again. You get to re-experience it. That's what thoughts do. You can have a great thought that gets you to re-experience that again, or you can have a negative or bad thought, however you want to think about it, and re-experience that again. But if I can ask you a powerful question to re-experience that positive, what you want to create in the world, like the greatness that has happened this day, you're going to naturally find that as your answer. And so listening to how other people frame questions, even just the questions that you're asking to your significant other. So instead of asking like, how was your day? Spice it up. Say, hey, what was something funny that happened today? Or what's something that you failed at that you like want to teach us so that we don't do that for ourselves? What was the best lesson that you learned from one of your failures today? Like even just asking that question while you're at the dinner table, that'll take the conversation into a entirely different level than just saying, oh, how was everybody's day? So really the power of questions is what I'll end on because they are so powerful. But remember, everybody asks questions around. Take note of the questions that you feel are like the great ones and write them down somewhere so that you can re-ask them later.
Fantastic. Mark, I can think of no better question or response to end on than that one. Thank you so much for the time that you spent with us today. Folks, thank you for joining us on the webinar today. I know that all of you have a stack of things that you need to get to, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. But before we close out, Mark, any closing comments you'd like to share?
No, I just want to wrap up with what I said in the beginning, and that is like I appreciate you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys for still listening, for being the light out there during times of darkness, right? It's not easy to do this, but there's people out there who are struggling, who need us to continue to show up, who depend on us to lead the way, to create that momentum, to use our energy for the greater good. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you guys for doing that, because I see you guys putting in that time and energy out there, and I thank you for it.
Indeed. Again, Mark, thank you. Thank you to our audience. And with that, this concludes this morning's Justice Clearinghouse webinar. Take care, everyone, and please stay safe. Bye now.